The level of devotion expected of members was clear when several set themselves on fire in various European cities in 2003 to protest against the temporary arrest of Maryam Rajavi. But Newsnight heard a series of accounts of how in the 1990s those considered less reliable were tortured within the confines of the organisation's camp in Iraq.
They hit my knee so hard it felt as though they pushed it into my heart. Then one of them pulled my hair and said he would teach me a lesson I would never forget. They put a handcuff on me and hung me from my right hand. I thought that my hand would be torn off. I shouted, "Why are you doing this to a member of the organization?" But they hung me like that for 20 minutes. It was as if all the pain in my body was in my hand.
The Mujahideen were the guests of Saddam Hussein. In the 1980s, when he was an ally of the West and at war with Iran, he offered them their most convenient base. But what's certain is that their association with the Iraqi dictator was to become a terrible liability. In the 1990s, after Iraq's invasion of Kuwait, Saddam became the West's enemy. Meanwhile, in 1997, a new, more reformist president, Mohammad Khatami, was elected in Tehran. In that year, America listed the Mujahideen as terrorists, severely limiting their ability to lobby and fundraise in the West. Some believe the move was intended partly as a gesture towards Iran.
There was certainly a debate within the U.S. government as to whether or not the MKO should be added to the list, but the ultimate decision that was made was that the United States needed to be consistent in its application of these standards, that no country would take the United States seriously if the only groups that we put on the list of terrorists were groups that attacked either the United States or our allies.
In any case, when the US attacked Afghanistan in 2001, Washington and Tehran, which both wanted the removal of the Taliban, certainly had reason to talk. And one deal that was discussed between officials on the ground was for America and Iran to come together over the body of the Mujahideen.
We had some intelligence, as I recall, that indicated that some key senior figures from al-Qaeda might have gone to Iran. And so just casual conversation suggested that the Iranians would be willing to turn over those al-Qaeda figures, but we'd have to, give them a quid pro quo. And every time quid pro quos came up, MEK was there. It hovered around the discussions almost all the time because it was clear the Iranians were very concerned about the MEK. Period.
Wilkerson and his boss, Colin Powell, weren't sure how high in the Iranian government the approach came from. They didn't pursue the offer. But a year and a half later, there was a better chance for a deal. The US-led invasion of Iraq thoroughly alarmed Iran. Newsnight learned that shortly afterwards, it sent Washington a secret letter proposing talks. We've obtained a copy of the letter. It's unsigned, but the State Department understood it came with the approval of the highest authorities in Tehran, and it offers exactly what many in Washington believe America should now be seeking from Iran. Tehran offered to use its influence to support stabilization in Iraq. It also proposed full transparency on its nuclear program and, remarkably, an end to military support for the militant Lebanese group Hezbollah and aid to the Palestinian Hamas. In return, it wanted a halt in US hostile behavior, abolition of all sanctions and, very specifically, pursuit of the Mujahideen and repatriation of their members.
And we thought it was a very propitious moment to do that. I think the Secretary of State and the Deputy Secretary of State thought the same thing. But as soon as it got to the White House, and as soon as it got to the Vice President's office, the old mantra of "we don't talk to evil," which held sway with regard to Pyongyang, North Korea, and held sway with regard to Tehran, reasserted itself, and to our embarrassment at State, as far as I'm concerned, the cable that I saw go back to the Swiss actually upbraided the Swiss for being so bold and audacious as to present such a proposal to us on behalf of the Iranians.
The President of the United States.
It was the zenith of American strength in the region, a natural time for White House hawks to wonder if regime change in Iraq couldn't be followed by regime change in Iran. The Mujahideen, the obvious allies in any such campaign, had been bombed by the US during the invasion of Iraq, and afterwards the State Department ordered them to be disarmed. But the special Pentagon forces sent to perform that task saw instantly how useful the exiled fighters could be.
They were, a formidable fighting force there. It was not, they're clearly the best equipped fighting force we came up against. Forces led by women is such a unique, it sounds almost fictional.
And the US Army's instant infatuation with the Mujahideen was fully requited. Ever pragmatic, a force that had thrown in its lot with Saddam now apparently wanted to serve America in any way it could.
We wanted them disbanded, essentially. And, that was clear, and that was what we had issue with, because they still wanted to work with us.